Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be here with you today to talk about this important issue. We are going to be responding to something in the news that you probably have seen, but you may not have noticed how important it is, because it is a display of emotional manipulation. It is an obfuscation of the facts. It is a rewriting of what you are seeing with your own eyes to benefit a political outcome that you would not otherwise agree with. This is some of the worst race card use, political manufacturing of the situation that we have seen in some time. And this is being done by Representative Maxine Waters. And we want to go over this with you so that you can see critically what is being done to manipulate you into an outcome that benefits a partisan outcome. Now, if this is the first time that you have seen the channel, we do want to first say we thank you and welcome you to the channel. We want you to know that we do long-form political commentary. And every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you. We reach out on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, DLive, essentially all the social media that the internet overlords will allow to hear your tweets, your chats and texts, and even your phone calls from anywhere in the world. Because we believe in the First Amendment. Whether your government, whether the internet overlords agree or disagree, we want to hear what you have to say. And every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we go live to hear you from anywhere in the world. We hope to see you every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now on to the issue of what's going on today. Because we had to stop. We were working on an event that's coming up next week, working with the Civic Engagement Board, which I am a member of the SUNY Broome Civic Engagement Board, working on the 9th Amendment, the 10th Amendment, and your voting rights. And we hope that that will be a great event. But we had to stop when we saw this news announcement, and it was intensely aggravating. It was something that was such blatant manipulation, I'm not sure how else to characterize it. What we saw is Maxine Waters, someone who is known to use race as a tool to try and benefit her political or partisan ideology at the cost of everything else. Now, this is a 2-minute clip, and it's very important because it's about the Haitian illegal aliens at our southern border, many of them under a bridge in Del Rio, Texas. And Maxine Waters has come out today, September 23rd, to make a statement. We want to go over that statement with you in context with facts to let you understand how badly she is manipulating or attempting to manipulate you, to use your emotions and imagery of the race card, of slavery, to try and get you to an outcome that doesn't make sense. Let's show you what we mean.
I'm pissed. I'm unhappy, and I'm not just unhappy with the cowboys who were running down Haitians and using their reins to whip them. I'm happy with the administration.
So let's stop right there. And we've only gone 15 seconds into this, and it is insane the amount of misinformation that has just been introduced to the American people. It is insane the amount of emotional manipulation that Maxine Waters can put into 15 seconds. Because just about everything she said there is absolutely wrong. Almost everything that she said is out of context and is used as a manipulation of you. Let me explain what we mean. First of all, we hear Maxine Waters, as she just said, that she is upset. That she is upset with the Biden administration. She is upset with the American people. Why is she upset? Well, you might think it's because only 85 Americans have been able to leave Afghanistan since the retreat, the complete rout of U.S. forces under the leadership of the Biden-Harris administration. You know, that situation where we were told initially that there were, back in July, we were told there were 10 to 15,000 Americans in Afghanistan. That came from the Biden-Harris administration, covered by international news. After August 15th, we were told that there was an unknown number of Americans in Afghanistan. By August 31st, we were told that there were 6,000 Americans that were in Afghanistan, 5,584 of which had been evacuated, along with 120,000 Afghan citizens. Okay, and that left, according to the math of the Biden-Harris administration, some 500 American citizens in Afghanistan. And that changed on roughly September 1st, September 2nd. We suddenly heard that the number of Americans left in Afghanistan was miraculously 200. The numbers keep changing. We don't know why they're changing. We don't know how they're changing, how the U.S. government is coming up with these numbers, but they keep changing. And now we find out on September 20th, 85 of the supposedly only 200 Americans that were left in Afghanistan have been returned home, mostly through private organizations like the Nazarene Fund. But now we're told 85 have come home. That would leave over 100 Americans still in Afghanistan, according to the current Biden-Harris administration numbers that want to come home. And so this should be something that should be the number one news in America. It should be the most important thing that you've been hearing about. We've been talking about it consistently on this channel, and we're going to get back to Maxine Waters, but we want to emphasize, if there is anything that every American, universally, regardless of what political beliefs you may have, should be upset about, is the fact that American citizens have been abandoned in harm's way in a nation controlled by terrorists, the Taliban, that are infested, a nation infested with ISIS and Al-Qaeda, more terrorists, all of them dedicated to killing Americans. For decades, they have been killing Americans, and they wish to do that more. So you would think, well, this is obviously what Maxine Waters should be upset about, but she doesn't care. Just like when we saw with Congressman Antonio Delgado. He doesn't care. Mr. Delgado is more than happy to use veterans and saying that he's helping veterans, which he is, to obfuscate the fact that there are Americans in harm's way. The very reason why many American citizens are upset, many veterans are upset about the Saigon-like retreat from Afghanistan, and it is causing problems for Afghan veterans, Middle East veterans, and those veterans from the Vietnam War. That's the reason why they're upset, and individuals like Maxine Waters and Congressman Antonio Delgado are more than happy to ignore this fact and to focus on anything but. In fact, we don't even know what's going on with these members of Congress. We don't know, rather, these Afghan citizens. As we went over on September 9th, no one in the Biden-Harris administration, no one in Congress, no one in the state government of New York, no one knows what's going on with these Afghan citizens, these individuals who have been evacuated into the United States, some 62,000 of them that happen to be on U.S. soil at this moment. We have no idea who they are, whether they've been vetted or not, whether they've been vaccinated for COVID, whether or not they are coming to which states and what numbers, what counties, how much cost that will be. No one has an answer as we have been able to evaluate. But I wanted to go over all of that so you understand. What is Maxine Waters worried about? Is she worried about American citizens that are in harm's way? No, she could care less. She doesn't care. And that's the most important thing for you to understand. She doesn't actually care. She wants to use this to her advantage. She has a partisan objective, which is to open up the border and to allow illegal aliens to become United States citizens, a path to citizenship which she believes and her party believes will benefit them in the 2022 and 2024 elections. That is the goal. And whatever it takes to get there is what she will do. And anything that would take away from that, she will avoid. As much as she says she's upset with the Biden-Harris administration, the truth is she could care less. She has a goal, and that goal is to open up America's borders and to subvert American voters by diluting the pool of individuals who are able to vote and to vote for Democrats and to maintain their power. That is what we believe. You may disagree. So again, just going over those first 15 seconds, I will play it again for you so you will put in context everything I have just said and what Maxine Waters says going forward.
I'm pissed. I'm unhappy, and I'm not just unhappy with the cowboys who were running down Haitians and using their reins to whip them. I'm happy with the administration. We are following the Trump policy. He is the one that does not follow the Constitution and would not allow those seeking refuge to be able to petition to get into the country.
Wait a minute. Let's stop again. 28 seconds in. Massive numbers of things that are absolutely incorrect. So the Biden administration, which since January 20th, when the Biden administration took over peacefully, the very first thing in the first 48 hours that the Biden administration did was to issue 40 executive orders reversing the policy on almost every level that the Trump administration had put forth. That includes immigration policy. And they have continued to do that. Now, we also saw, as a result of that, a swell of individuals coming into the United States government, as we have covered in this on the show many, many times. That we have seen at this moment approximately 1.3 million illegal aliens that have entered this nation. And again, they are not immigrants. They are illegal aliens. They have no authorization to be in the United States. They were not invited to the United States. They have broken our laws. So Maxine Waters is presenting in a situation that isn't correct. This isn't about President Trump's policies. President Trump is not in the Oval Office. It is a distraction. It is a deflection that is meant to distract voters and to perpetuate an idea of orange man bad and to blame a former president for the issues and the problems created by the current president. Now, let's go on beyond that. What did Maxine Waters say? That these individuals were trying to get into the United States, that they were only following the Constitution, which is incorrect, and they are only trying to get into America, and we are harshly and horribly treating them bad and not allowing them to enter the United States willy-nilly. That they are refugees, which they are not. Well, let's actually think about that for a second. I want to show you something. This is the path that we have seen these individuals take. To get from Haiti to Del Rio, Texas, is a 18-hour flight. They're not taking flights from Haiti to Del Rio, Texas. These individuals are going by land, and they have been doing so for many years. In fact, as we will show you, as reported by the NPR, these individuals have been coming from Brazil in some cases. They've been coming from South America. They have been traveling on land, most of them by foot, thousands of miles to enter the United States through Texas. Something that they could have much more easily done going from Haiti to Miami or into Florida, or any of the rest of the southern border of the United States. But instead, they went to Texas. And you have to ask the question, why? Why are these individuals going overland into Texas instead of going to Miami? Because these aren't individuals who are leaving Haiti today. These are individuals that have left Haiti years ago and have come into the United States along with other migrant groups, some 6,000 individuals a day that have been coming into the United States since February under the guidance and direction of the Biden administration. So this is why this is a problem, and why we have unprecedented numbers of individuals from many countries that are entering the United States through their open border down in the southern border, something that Kamala Harris won't go to, that Joe Biden won't go to. In fact, it is believed, and I cannot confirm it absolutely at this moment, but we believe that all evidence points to Joe Biden has never, in 48 years in an elected office, he has never been to the southern border. But let's see what else we're hearing from Maxine Waters, because these aren't individuals who have just left Haiti because of current unrest. Back to Maxine Waters.
What the hell are we doing here? What we witnessed takes us back hundreds of years. What we witnessed was worse than what we witnessed in slavery.
Okay, now you know I was coming to the slavery issue, the question about slavery. Oh my God, we have seen Americans that were whipping black people. Isn't that horrible? Oh my God, we see the white government beating down on black people. This is slavery. They're using whips. It's straight out of Roots. This is terrible. Don't you feel angry? You must feel angry. In a racially charged America where Democrats cannot make a statement about anything without referring to race, you have to understand racism is the number one threat to America. It is the biggest danger to America, according to Democrats, according to the progressive movement. That we have to understand critical race theory is the most important thing we could be talking about in every single subject. Racism is institutional, and this is yet one more example of that institutional racism. Except if we are to take Maxine Waters at her word, then this is the institutional racism promoted by the Biden-Harris administration. That they are promoting it because they're the ones in charge. They're the ones who have given directives to the Border Patrol. In fact, it was the Biden administration that actually gave the Haitians the impetus to come to the United States. They said they would not deport. That's right. 2 weeks ago, the Biden administration came out and said they were not going to deport Haitians and many other individuals from other countries, that they had an emergency status and they would not be deported from the United States. And then he reversed his position. Much like many of his promises, the Biden administration has turned around and said, well, what we said isn't what we're going to do. Kind of like when they said they were going to get every American out of Afghanistan, and we see that there are potentially hundreds, if not thousands of Americans that are still in Afghanistan. They just don't want to talk about it. Let's focus on what Maxine Waters is saying here. She said that the Border Patrol they're using whips. How dare they? They have gone back 100 years. Which would put us to 1920s, where slavery did not exist in the United States. So she means over 100 years ago. But the idea is we're going back to slavery. And this is the worst thing that could possibly happen. I want to show you something. This is from the executive director of Julian Castro's People First Future. Julian Castro, for those who have forgotten, was a 2020 Democratic candidate for the nomination for the presidency. He is a Democrat, a very progressive Democrat. And so one of his executive directors of one of the organizations he's involved with provided video of what actually happens at the border with the U.S. Border Customs Patrol. And I want to play this for you because I want you to have it in context, okay? I want you to see this as clearly as possible. And I want you to watch the video.
Estamos pasando súper mal. La familia le manda plata a nosotros.
We're having a hard time. Our family sends us money, but we can't eat. We have children, but don't have diapers. Look, now I have to cross to the Mexican side with wet money to be able to buy things for the child, and we have nothing. We're unable to eat. I need help with everything that's happening to us over there because there are a lot of children, and they're only removing the single parents, and the children are left alone. Just imagine.
So I wanted to play that completely for you. I wanted to blow that up for you so that you could see for yourself what Maxine Waters is talking about, the slavery that she has been talking about, the slavery that we have seen being promoted by all of the major news media, well, essentially all of the major news media. And here's the thing that's important. In that video you just saw, stop your emotions for a second, play that back again. This is coming from the Democrats, the progressives. Not one person was hit. Not one person had a whip. It did not happen. It does not exist. Looking at every single still photo that has ever been produced on this, every video that has been produced on this, not one person, not one Haitian has actually been struck. Not one person actually held a whip. I don't care which news source you go to. I don't care what image you look at. And everything that has been presented to date, not one person has been hit. Not one person has had a whip used against them. Now, you may think it's been aggressive. You may think that it is overly aggressive. Fair enough. But no one has ever used a whip against the Haitians. Not one person was hit with a whip by a Haitian from the United States against the Haitian. It's not true. It's not real. You are being lied to. And you're being lied to not only by the major news media, but by Maxine Waters. She is using your emotions, and specifically the racial emotions you have that have been ginned up by the Democratic Party throughout all of 2020 and now in 2021. She's been using this to try and abuse you. This is abuse. This is emotional abuse to gain and leverage because she's telling you a lie. In fact, one of the few news media sources, and you can search for this, it is almost impossible to find a single news outlet that is actually telling you what I have just shown you. That Border Patrol agents are not whipping migrants, that they are not whipping illegal aliens, they are not whipping Haitians. Black people aren't being whipped. It didn't happen. You are being lied to. Besides the fact that I will be very clear about this. Because if there was an image of even one person that was whipped, if there was any evidence of even one person being whipped, if there was evidence of even one whip being present, the news media would blast that all day and you would have that image in front of you. There isn't one. It doesn't exist. So they're using you. You are being manipulated. Vice News, this is coming from the National Review, the only legitimate major news source that was able to provide this, they state, Vice News declared in a tweet on Monday that Border Patrol agents are, quote, whipping Haitian illegal migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border in Texas. Yet neither the story from Vice News nor the Al Jazeera video, which supports terrorists, it links to suggest that the agents are actually whipping migrants. Vice writes of, quote, officers on horseback swinging whips in the faces of Haitians. I just showed you the video. Those are reins. It's not a whip. It's used to control the horse. And yes, they were moving it around, not only to move the horse, but to be imposing against the Haitians. That's not offensive. That's not attacking someone. That's not using a whip or a whip-like motion. That's meant to block individuals. It's not the same thing. While a report from the El Paso Times described a Border Patrol agent as having swung his whip menacingly while charging his horse towards them in the river. That's the video I just showed you. Menacingly? How about defensively? How about they were trying to stop individuals from breaking the United States law, that they were illegally trying to enter the United States, and relatively passively, the U.S. Border Control, as I showed you in the video, were trying to stop them from coming into the United States, as is their job. Now, you may think it was more aggressive than it needed to be, even though no one was injured, even though no one was harmed, and even though, as you saw, dozens still entered the United States anyway. So it wasn't very effective, but it wasn't slavery. In no context, in no way. They want you to think it's slavery. They're using wording to make you feel like it's slavery. They want you to feel like there is a racial conflict and component here. It doesn't exist. It's a manipulation. Let's hear what else Maxine Waters has to say.
Cowboys with their reins again whipping black people, Haitians, into the water where they're scrambling and falling down when all they're trying to do is escape from violence in their country. Yes, it is unfortunate that it is the poorest country.
Hold on, I want to stop right here because I want to go to, all they're trying to do is escape. Okay, this is from NPR, the NPR. Many Haitian migrants are staying in the U.S. even as expulsion flights rise. I want to get back to this, but I want to point out something that's very important in the NPR article, and it's way down. Again, let me show you this. This is a big article, and you have to go all the way to the very second to last paragraph to find out that some of the Haitians left Haiti 4 years ago and have been living in Brazil until they began their journey to the United States in June, much of it on foot. So they didn't even try and come into the United States until the Biden administration told the world they would not deport Haitians for entering the United States illegally. And then when they heard that news, that's when they decided to come to the United States. So they weren't trying to come into the United States. They weren't refugees. They weren't trying to escape into the United States for safety. Besides the fact that that doesn't apply. There are many nations, the Brazil is right down here on just below the image you see on the screen. They weren't trying to escape into the United States. They weren't seeking refugee status because from Brazil to the United States, they have to go through several countries where they could have requested refugee status. There are thousands of miles and dozens of countries they have to go through. Places like Costa Rica, places like Belize, like Mexico, which are safe havens for the people of Haiti, that if they wanted to request refugee status, according to the UN, the regulations on refugees, the first safe nation you can get to is the nation you go to, the one that is closest to you, and the first nation you get to is where you ask for refugee status. That is the regulations on the UN. That is a fact. They didn't do that because they don't want to be refugees. They wanted to get to America because they could not be deported. And that's why they went straight through Mexico. That's why they went through Costa Rica and Honduras. It's why they left Brazil to get to the United States. And that's being proven by NPR. in a throwaway line at the very end of an article because they don't want you to think about that. They don't want you to realize that these illegal aliens are taking advantage of the poor policy decisions made by the Biden-Harris administration without any input from Congress and the American public. No one voted on this. No one gave authorization for this. You didn't get to speak to your member of Congress, whether it's at the House of Representatives or Senate, to say, I support this. It was the Biden-Harris administration unilaterally, through executive order, making their own decision without considering any of the consequences. That is a fact. Maxine Waters is again wrong. These aren't people escaping from Haiti to try and get to a better nation as a refugee or an evacuee. They aren't. They were already gone. They're coming to the United States to take advantage of the Democrats' push to open our border. But let's see what else Maxine Waters has to say here, which is very critical.
In this hemisphere, it is unfortunate that they have no stable government right now. It is unfortunate that they've had to live through earthquakes. I've been working with Haitians for 30 years.
Stop right there. I want to come back to this. I want to come back to what she was saying here. I want you to hear that as well as you can.
That it is the poorest country in this hemisphere. It's unfortunate that
it is unfortunate that it is the poorest nation in the North American hemisphere. Okay, so they're poor. Go on.
It is the poorest country in this hemisphere. It is unfortunate that they have no stable government right.
They have a horrible government. They are a poor nation. They have a horrible government, which would also go with why they are poor. Okay, let's keep going.
Now, it is unfortunate that they've had to live through earthquakes. I've been working.
They suffered from natural disasters, which happen to nations around the world all the time, whether it's a typhoon, whether it's flooding, hurricanes, earthquakes, natural disasters, volcanoes. Natural disasters happen across the world to governments around the world. And if you have a better government, you have a better response to that. If you have a horrible government, you have a horrible response to that. But we can't blame that on politics, other than horrible governments have horrible responses to natural disasters, even in wealthy nations like Katrina in the United States. But let's go on.
Working with Haitians for 30 years.
She has been working with Haitians for 30 years. For 30 years, Maxine Waters has been in power, and she has been directly working with the Haitian people. And you would think that's a positive statement. You would think that's a good thing. It means she's a failure. It means she has completely and abjectly failed at every demonstrable level. Let me be very clear about that. Maxine Waters is a failure because in 30 years of her efforts, along with the other Democrats and progressives in Congress that have been forever in our government, Maxine Waters has failed. She failed to improve the economy of Haiti. She has failed to improve the government of Haiti. She has failed the people of Haiti, who are not her primary responsibility. The American public are. But if you're looking at this, Maxine Waters is a Democrat coming from California. And she has failed the people of California. California is the feces capital of the world. We have more people defecating on the streets in California than anywhere else in the world. We have one of, if not the largest, homeless population in California at this moment. She has failed the people of California. So why are we surprised she has failed the people of Haiti? And she is being very explicit here. No one in the news media is going to focus on this. No one's going to tell you that Maxine Waters is a failure by her own words. She said it herself. I will play it again because she said it herself. 30 years, 3 decades, complete failure, even though she was directly involved in trying to improve the economy and the government of Haiti.
For 30 years. I've been working through 2 coups d'etats. I went to the Central African Republic and I brought back Aristide after he was exiled into the Central African Republic. They have always been between Canada and France and the United States treated worse than anybody else.
Okay, they have poor international relations, whether it's Canada, the French, or the United States. Okay, that's Haiti. But here's the bigger thing. You have done all these things. You, as you said, Maxine Waters, you said you went out there, you've been working with them, you've been working with their governments to improve this, and you have failed. You are inept at your job. You are inept at what you have done. You are a failure. Why should we care what you are saying? You should resign or be replaced, and someone who is not inept, or at least a new person, should be available to try and to succeed at what you have failed at. 30 years, imagine that. Imagine that if you went to your doctor and every time that you went to your doctor, they couldn't figure out what's wrong with you and they misdiagnosed you for 30 years and you got sicker and sicker. Would you keep going back to that same doctor? Would you trust any of the opinions of that doctor? If you have a mechanic and every time you go there to that mechanic and they diagnose your car and they try and fix your car and they always fail to fix the problem, and sometimes your car is getting worse and it is even less functional than when you first started off, would you go back to that same mechanic, giving them more and more money and letting them do whatever they want? Would you trust that mechanic to tell you why things aren't working on your car? Would you actually do that? I don't think so. That doesn't make any sense. There is no example other than in politics, especially in democratic held strongholds, where I can show you someone who is completely inept, that is manipulating individuals with race and gender and identity politics, that has completely failed for decades upon decades and still maintains power, and if anything has grown in power. That they are even more rich and powerful with complete and abject failure that they will admit to you directly on national media. Maxine Waters isn't afraid of telling you that she is an abject, inept failure. She's not afraid because she's saying racism. And she knows the news media is going to go with racism. She knows that BLM, that Antifa, that the radical far left, that fringe movement within the Democratic Party, the Democratic Socialists of America in the Democratic Party, that they're going to be fixated on, oh my God, whips. I heard the word whips, racism, slavery. That's all they hear. That's what they're going to look at, even when it is proven to be absolutely incorrect with no evidence whatsoever. And they are going to completely miss the fact that she just admitted to abject, complete failure, that she is inept and does not deserve to be in the position she holds. Let's go on to hear what else this failure has to say.
And so, yes, we are here and we're organized and we're saying to the president and everybody else, you got to stop this madness. And I want to know in the first place, who's paying these cowboys to do this?
Stop this madness. Stop this madness. This madness that brought 15,000 people to the southern border. This is the scene, okay? On September 23rd. There are almost 4,000 illegal aliens that are living under a bridge. That America is such a great country that it is better to live under a bridge in America than to actually live in Haiti. That's the thing you have to understand. People were in Brazil, according to NPR, as I showed you. And the United States is so attractive with the guidance from the Biden administration that they will not be deported initially, that they are willing to live under a bridge in this shanty town than to live in Brazil or in Haiti, their home country. And she's saying this is madness. And the madness is worse than you think, because we know for a fact that just like we have seen, as it was reported, not on national news, back on May 19th, that the Biden administration, their answer to the problem with illegal immigration, like the unaccounted minors, those kids, they've been shipping them out across the entire country in the middle of the night. This is reported by WRCB out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, that there are multiple flights, and we have covered this story before, that they have been shipping kids in, hundreds of kids in the middle of the night on planes, multiple planes, that even video, Channel 3 out of Chattanooga had video of planes with kids that are being shipped out in buses, that these kids are being taken to Miami and Dallas, that they are being taken over to Mobile, Alabama, and to Atlanta. These kids are being shipped out across the United States behind your back without telling you anything about it. And guess what? They're doing that to the Haitians as well. As reported by NPR, many Haitian migrants are staying in the United States, and they go into this and they mention there were over 14,000 people that were in Texas, in Del Rio, over the weekend. The criteria for who is flown to Haiti and who is released in the United States is a mystery. But two officials said single adults were a priority. That asylum seekers, there's no asylum that they're seeking, because there are multiple countries that they could have sought asylum in before they got to the United States. As I showed you in this very article, individuals were in Brazil. They could have asked for asylum there. As we can see from the map, Brazil's closer than the United States. So is Costa Rica. So is Belize. So is Mexico. They didn't need to be in the United States. They are not seeking asylum. These aren't individuals seeking asylum. So that's incorrect. The system is a black box, said Wade McCullen, an attorney with the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights, who is in Del Rio. Right now, we have no official access to understand what processes are underway, what protections are being provided for the migrants. We have no idea what is going on. Left-leaning organizations whose only purpose is to allow for illegal immigration in the United States, they don't understand what's going on. This is inept in every aspect, and we have unknown numbers of people who are being shipped into the United States, distributed across the United States in the middle of the night. Individuals, as this article identifies, individuals are being moved over into different cities, being bused and allowed to go throughout the United States to unspecified locations throughout the United States. And all they're getting is a piece of paper saying, show up at ICE wherever you wind up in the United States in the next 60 days. That's it. That's the effort that the United States is doing. They're giving them a summons to show up to ICE over the next 60 days, and we are trusting them that even though they broke the law, even though they illegally entered the United States, they violated asylum regulations of the UN, we're going to trust these people to then give themselves up to the authorities somewhere else in the nation over the next 60 days because they said they would. It's an honor system here. This makes no sense, folks. But then again, it shouldn't make sense, because these are the same people who, during the disgrace of the April 22nd, 2021, when Micaiah Bryant was attempting to stab another woman to death. It was Democrats who were running around, these same progressives that were running around at the time, and they were saying to the public, no, knife fights are okay. It's okay for black kids to have knife fights and to try and kill one another. Because racism, it's racist to try and stop and protect black individuals who are unarmed and someone is attempting to stab them to death. These are the same people that will lie to your face. Black girls were being abused by the system. They were being strip searched. And it was a lie. There was no strip search. The black kids didn't get strip searched. There was no problem in our school systems. They just said it did. And they got international coverage for saying, oh, black girls were being strip searched. And they lied. They used the race card to intimidate individuals to try and make you believe something that wasn't true, that never happened. They lied to the public, and they are lying to the public right now. The evidence exists, and Maxine Waters knows it. Maxine Waters is taking advantage of you. I want to hear the last of what she had to say as she's describing the level, the depth of her failure.
And I want to know, in the first place, who's paying these cowboys to do this work? They've got to be gotten rid of. They've gotten to be stopped. It cannot go on.
Why can't it go on? What's the problem? And NBC was more than happy to provide this to you, to show you this information, but not give you any context on what she was saying, on how accurate what she said is, and whether or not this is actually being, whether or not there's ineptitude that's being presented here. No, they want you to think racism, slavery. You should be outraged. Be a progressive Democrat. Listen to progressive Democrats. Do what they tell you. Don't mind the details. Don't mind the facts. It doesn't matter. Because even when they're lying to you, it's okay. Because they can lie to you and tell you that black girls are being strip searched. Didn't happen. Because they'll tell you that it's okay for black kids to stab one another, even though it's not. That they're going to ship kids in the middle of the night to hide the fact that that the unaccounted minors, they don't know what to do with them, and there is an epidemic going on. They're going to try and show you images that are absolutely false and have no evidence behind it, and that they are going to tell you that they have absolutely failed you, and they will admit that to your face. And they are counting on the fact that you're not going to pay attention. She's been in Congress for 30 years because she has failed and has described how she has failed over and over again. She's failed the American people. She has failed Haiti, and we should call her out for that. Now, you may disagree. You may think that we have misrepresented the information, that we have not understood the context. We're happy to hear what you have to say. Please leave us a comment and tell us what you think. And we hope to see you every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to tell us what you think about the issues that are affecting us all across the world.